200. You're in my seat now. I don't know if it was my neighbor's NS200 being revved up at 12:30 in the morning, or lightning and thunder. It could have been a little bit of both, but I've only been asleep for a whole 5 hours. But I'm thank you for being here today. We're doing a very interesting and different presentation today. We have we've Alex over here from OBJ and Orlando Inno, who will be talking more about the ecosystem of startups and kind of what they're seeing from their research articles about what's happening in this space. And we also have Jan here, who's going to talk about her experience in the space. So kind of big view and like on the ground view of startup space. It's a space that I actually participate a good amount in, whether having a startup or being a mentor for this program that we met at called iCore over at UCF. It's a NSF grantee, a grantor or grant program. I don't know exactly how to explain that.
We get money from NSF.
Yes, we get money for NSF and give it to people to figure out ideas. That's what we do. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, a couple things of note for the future. Upcoming events include our emerging tech SIG that's happening via Zoom this afternoon. We also have the Blackjack Sporting Clays event over on the 25th. Registration is still open. There's a limited amount of seats, so if you're interested, feel free. If you want to shoot some guns, I wish I could go. I'm unfortunately I'm not able to. I enjoy sporting clays. It's kind of fun. We also have at least to me. We also have on April 20th, maybe a fitting day, who knows, anti-work or just aggravation. So that'll be a conversation led by me and some of the research that I'm doing. It's going to be an interactive conversation. We're going to talk about the kind of what I'm researching is the spread of complete anarchy and abolition of work. We shouldn't be in these suits. We shouldn't be in these meetings. We shouldn't be working. We just need to figure out childcare, housing, and food, and we should just be free, which is a legitimate 2 million plus subreddit that believes in this, and but they also believe in the like capitalism, if you will. Like capitalism is fine, but don't treat us like crap, right? So there's this really huge spread, and it's very poignant in this labor market right now because if you are having trouble potentially finding people to work the jobs that you have open, which seems to be a lot of people, which I'm going to look at Susan Howell's right here. So it is interesting. So we're going to talk about what other people are talking about and kind of have more of a conversation than a presentation, and see what you're doing in your organizations and what other people are thinking about what they should be doing for work, which can mean everything from nothing to, I just want to work from home and you're going to pay me what you want because you can't find people like me to work for you. So that's going to be what we're going to do in next month on 420. So we have RLF. We have no RLF speakers here to the program. RLF, if you don't know about it, Google it. But it is coming up, and there are some cohorts coming up for that, so please note that. So again, today we're talking about what's on the horizon for Orlando within the startup space. So I'll invite Alex to come up first. Jan will come up just afterwards, and we'll go from the big view to the on-the-ground view of startups. Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Is this on?
It is on.
Okay, let's caption audio
there too.
In there. Okay, cool. Well, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Like Josh said, my name is Alex Soderstrom. I write about technology for the Orlando Business Journal, which, funny enough, is based 12 floors down from here. So good to make the long commute up here. But I really appreciate y'all having me here and Josh inviting me. Love to get to talk about the stuff we're watching and covering, writing about every day. Just want to give a quick intro again to me and what we do. I know maybe that's not why y'all are here, is to hear me talk about myself, but it's just kind of interesting because I started at Orlando Business Journal in 2019. I was hired to be the technology writer, and then right about that time, it was kind of getting the point where they saw the tech kind of sector, this innovation sector, really growing to the point that they wanted to spin off a new news publication that's part of the Orlando Business Journal, but just focuses on startups, technology, that kind of thing. It took us some time. We didn't launch it until last summer. There was a little minor pandemic that kind of got in the way of all that. But so now it's funny because I'm kind of in two circles where I'm writing some things for the OBJ, which y'all are probably more familiar with, and that may be more about what's going on at Lockheed. What are kind of the big picture trends in employment or in cyber or anything like that. And then I'm writing about profiling these startups that are raising venture funding and maybe have 5 employees, maybe have 100 employees, and that is for Orlando Inno. So kind of this nice, I think, just array of coverage we've set up, kind of going from really smallest companies, kind of the start of for this technology company life cycle, all the way to the publicly traded companies. So I think that's given us really good view of what's going on here. And then I've got a few interesting takeaways of things we're really watching. We're really expecting to be big this year in 2022. But I wanted to start with just kind of going over. I just pulled since we launched Orlando Inno last June, what have been the most popular articles that we've published and what have been readers most interested in, which I think is really just interesting. And so the first thing so kind of just pull it again, like the most popular articles here that we've done since June. Number one headline is Nation's Youngest Billionaire, Austin Russell, aims to unleash the potential of Orlando with a $70 million donation. That had 132,000 views. Funny enough, I think like 5,000 or 6,000 of those were from people in Orlando. So if y'all haven't, I know, I think someone from Luminar came, just recently at the last meeting. So Austin Russell is the CEO and founder of the company. So that is kind of showing that, that's a company based in Orlando, but tons of attention on them nationwide. So many viewers from California, where the company is also present. Number two is we had another article called, the headline was, They Built Careers in Manhattan Finance. Now they plan to revolutionize check cashing in Orlando. And that was about a company called Cash Republic, which launched last year. They're more of a kind of storefront check cashing kind of service, but they're trying to institute a lot of technology, mobile platforms, that kind of thing. Next one is OneRail expects to add 100 jobs next year as it lands big name clients. Y'all may or may not have heard that OneRail, they're a logistics, last mile delivery kind of software company based here in Orlando. And then number 4, Luminar CEO shares how his company's growth sets up future tech success. So Luminar, again, getting caught up in the most popular headlines. And then number 5, the headline is the CEO built, I misread this. This CEO built a wheelchair endorsed by Stephen Hawking before launching his new startup. And that's a company out of Melbourne that makes kind of this smart cushion for folks in wheelchairs, spending a lot of time sitting down. He had previously designed a wheelchair that Stephen Hawking, when he was alive, had endorsed as being really high tech and servicing people in wheelchairs. So all of this to say, these headlines have in common, besides the fact that I think I can write a pretty solid headline. It's just that I think what we're seeing here is, again, the readership on these articles have been pretty strong, and especially the ones that are targeting growth, and then just kind of some of the interesting personalities and leaders behind some of these companies. But I think the growth aspect is really why people are focused on what we're doing at Orlando Inno and then the tech coverage at OBJ. And that's kind of our pitch to why we're doing this in the first place and growing this, because that what we're really seeing is just kind of the future for Orlando's economy is obviously in this direction, is in this more high tech, innovative direction. Obviously, the theme park industry continues to be dominant force. We cover that all the time. Healthcare is still here, but this is where we just see, again, kind of that those new areas of growth that are again kind of still new for this economy, new for this area, and that's what's catching people's attention. So, and kind of going off of that, Let me just make sure I've got some notes here. But what we're really watching for 2022, because I probably don't have to tell y'all this, but 2020 and then again in 2021, what was already happening, what we saw at least in kind of this tech world, has just accelerated. The growth has been insane. Everything's been digitized. So many more things are automated. And then not to mention the remote work aspect, which I'll probably talk more about here in a minute. But all of this has really just pushed forward, accelerated this growth we already saw for these tech companies, big and small, doesn't really matter. And really the biggest pain point, it's so funny, and I probably don't have to tell many people in this room this. I'm sure y'all maybe experienced the same things at your company, but the biggest pain point we see is not, lack of resources to grow their company here, not really lack of venture funding, which that is a case for some people, but that's growing. It's the talent, it's the availability to get people, and that's now it's every industry is having that same issue. But again, ever since I started here, that's been from day one the complaint. It's gotten no better, right? And I'm sure again, many of y'all face similar situations. So I think we really expect that to continue to be huge going forward in 2022. One of the things that's really, again, shifted is with this remote work environment. People obviously did that for so long. Now we're seeing some people come back to the office. Some people are staying at home. Some people are doing both. It's across the board. But talking with the people on the recruiting and staffing side, at least, because those kinds of folks are getting turned to, they're saying more than ever, right? They're busier than ever, because if you can't on your own find the people you need, recruit or retain the people you need, so you start looking for help elsewhere. You go to these recruiting firms, these staffing firms here, and for many of those guys, what they're saying is, for these candidates, especially these IT candidates that are in so high demand, what they're looking for has shifted some. And I'm not going to say that salary is not important, wages is important, because it is, and for a lot of people, that's the most important thing. But in so many situations, that has become eclipsed by this work environment and what they want, in terms of, so many of them want the flexibility to work from wherever, whether that's permanently or a few days a week. That's varying, but again, that seems to be kind of the way to make yourself the most competitive, because everyone's being asked to pay more or something like that. Salaries in this field just obviously are just skyrocketing every year. That's nothing new, but what really has been new is that again, these from the recruiting side, at least, they can't really compete when they're requiring people to come to the office every single day, unless there's something else major they have to offer the company. It's a particularly alluring company, alluring mission, that kind of thing. So we're expecting that to continue to be an issue. It's kind of maybe going to work out not bad, because I hear people complaining, like, oh, now there's all these remote workers who companies can go and hire and ignore people here in Orlando. But I mean, again, the issue is there haven't been enough people to hire in Orlando in the first place. And a couple of reasons for that. So really interesting was, if y'all are familiar with CBRE, they're a commercial real estate group, but they do this really great report every year on tech talent pools across cities across North America, and mostly in the US. And they go very in depth, almost every market, and ranks cities and all these different factors. And one of the ones where Orlando ranks the worst is what they call brain drain, which is a phenomenon of, so you have how many tech degrees or graduates with tech related degrees do you produce in a year, and then how many new tech workers are you adding to your workforce? And in Orlando, that's a negative number. So you're not retaining a net number of those folks. They're leaving. And again, I know that was a complaint before the pandemic. It's not seemed like it's alleviated. Probably gotten worse, because again, going back to the recruiting and staffing people, that's now what they're talking about, is now they're trying to hire these people for clients here in Orlando, but the talent is also getting courted by a Google or a no longer Facebook Meta or whatever now, but that's what's happening. So it's becoming even harder to keep those people here. And I know for that can be a detriment. And still trying to figure out how do you change that, and that's still an open question. It seems like the biggest thing is just there's just a natural allure of these companies, especially the ones out west. So how do you make Orlando's tech scene a little more flashy or exciting, or highlight what's going on there? That's still the open question that those folks are trying to figure out. But there's no expectation that this hiring craze and this gap is going to drop off. So the numbers I pulled was from 2016 to 2020, the Orlando tech talent workforce, according to CBRE, added about 10,000 people over that 5-year period. Well, in 2020, there was more than 20,000 tech job postings, and now those aren't all at once. Obviously, that's being cycled through, but that just gives you an idea of it's not even close to we're naturally producing or attracting the number of people that are needed here. And again, the biggest employers too are the ones driving this. And I know Universal Parks, their CIO said that they're going to need to hire another 200 IT workers by 25, which is when Epic Universe is supposed to be coming online. So, I've talked to CIO at Orlando Health. They're kind of the same boat. I think they already employ over 700 IT workers, and they're just constantly hiring more. So you factor all that together, and that constraints, that tightness in that market's going to continue, it seems like. But we were talking about kind of, again, how do you make Orlando a little more exciting, or at least illuminate kind of what's going on in the tech scene here, because obviously some of the hospitality stuff is just really overshadowed everything's going on in the economy here. And again, so I talked about some of these most popular stories. Of the 5 most popular, 2 we're talking about Luminar. So that's, again, an example of a company that has really caught a lot of attention. Kind of this Silicon Valley roots, autonomous driving. It's very attractive in every way. They had a big merger that took them public. So I think in 2022, I think you're going to see a lot of maybe some other these homegrown emerging kind of tech companies here in Orlando kind of maybe get to that level as well. I'm not going to say who or exactly what that'll be, but just ones, because I can't pick the winners. But what I would say is some ones, interesting ones to watch. There's obvious one, which is Stacks, formerly known as Fat Merchant. Many of you probably heard. Last week they announced they had a $1 billion valuation, making them tech unicorn. But they're already talking about IPO and going public is next, and that's another similar company where there's growing interest to them from outside of Orlando, and obviously their unicorn announcement got traction and coverage in Bloomberg and Forbes and all of those folks. So that's another one I think going in that same direction. Another one I mentioned was One Rail, which has been growing super fast. Recently, they closed a pretty big Series A last year and raising money. So they're growing really fast, and then they're in this last mile delivery, sector, which is again already growing fast. The e-commerce, buying online, that stuff is again exploded, and so I'm sure most of you, like me, have bought more online over the past 2 years than you probably had before, and that's what's happening. I mean, some experts have said that it depends who you talk to, but some say that e-commerce growth has been accelerated by 5 years because of the pandemic. Some say by more than that, up to 10 years. So it's kind of insane, the growth going on there. You guys may have heard of, does anyone live in Lake Nona? No. Oh, okay. But if you go down there, you've probably seen the little beep shuttle that drives around, and that's another company that's been growing like crazy. Had a big, venture capital round last year, and continue to expand. And I think, and they're obviously, one of their investors is Intel out in California. So now they're working with Intel to start actually manufacturing and producing some of these driverless shuttles and deploying them across the country. So that's another company where you're going to get this kind of very national exposure. You've got a big name partner in Intel to kind of promote it. And then just autonomous driving has been, again, one of those areas that's just attracted so much interest from people. So, sorry, it's Beep, BEEP. Yeah. So that's another one. And then, this one, I don't know about the growth potential per se. I don't know exactly how big it will or won't get, but one that, again, I think is going to really keep catching people's attention is Space Perspective, which is out in Cape Canaveral. And y'all may have heard of that one again, but it's a, basically luxury balloon flight to the edge of space. And so, yeah. Takes about, I think, 6 hours to go up and down. And then the round trip, you go about 20 miles up and you just kind of float there. And it can take about 8 people in a little capsule that's you got seats, 125 grand ticket. Yeah. So, and then of course they're already booking tickets. Their first flight is supposed to be late 24, but they've raised over $40 million in capital. They're building a manufacturing facility in Melbourne, I think, or in Brevard County at least, and that's supposed to create 200 plus jobs. We'll see how all that plays out, but they've got, again, major kind of investors behind them, and we've already seen with, this kind of that continuation of, you've seen, people paying however many $1 million to go on Blue Origin. Virgin Galactic's eventually supposed to fly people if they can stop crashing, but like, but I think Space Perspective, right? Exactly. And so Space Perspective is interesting because there's already this kind of proven market for, a higher, net worth individual really wanting to go into space. That's an opportunity that's never really been available until the past couple of years. And I think Space Perspective capitalized on that because their ticket price is much lower, even though it's still 125 grand, but that's, people are paying 500 grand to the millions for these other rides. Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't go, you wouldn't catch me up there. You would not. But so it's kind of that interesting, different, I know you're kind of finding a different audience of people who are thrill seekers to the point that they're willing to go to space, but not exactly get strapped into a rocket and blast it off, where you're just doing this kind of slow, controlled descent and descent back down. So that's fascinating. That's one we're definitely watching. And then, the last point I'd make of again, the other thing is, this is more of a intangible or just kind of a amorphous thing, but just Orlando's reputation and status, again, of how it's viewed especially as a place for technology careers, for entrepreneurs, for innovation. There's so much that happens here, both from the Disney perspective, the healthcare companies, the simulation and defense industry pushes so much new kind of tech innovation. Then we've talked about some of these really up and coming startup type companies. But again, I see it again and again where ever since 2020, there's been so many of these lists and articles and reports and analysis on folks who are leaving California, they're leaving Silicon Valley, they're leaving Boston, they're leaving New York, these tech workers, these investors, these CEOs and founders. And then they're making these kind of new tech hubs because they're all resettling and finding, kind of the next big place. And so there's all these, again, reports and lists of what are the kind of the emerging tech hubs in the US, what are the big next tech cities. And you always see Miami, you'll always see Tampa. Austin was kind of already kind of there, but, again, you'll see, maybe Atlanta or the Triangle up in North Carolina. But I've yet to see a list, maybe one that had Orlando on it. And now that's not to say this list, I don't know if these lists are that reliable, trustworthy. They all have different metrics. That doesn't mean, Orlando, there's nothing going on here, but just, it definitely shows me that people outside this region are not really paying attention enough. They're not really seeing Orlando's kind of building up that reputation. And so, again, from what I hear especially from fundraising perspective for startups, I hear from a recruiting and hiring perspective from a lot of people, that does impact you a lot, and especially when we talk about younger talent, there's generally this wish to be the cool place where everything's kind of happening, the center of technology and innovation. So, Orlando's really got to try to break through that, and I know there's so much work going on here, and I'm sure plenty of y'all in here are involved with some of these efforts, but the OEP is obviously always trying to lure more companies here or help the ones here expand. And so I don't know what's going to maybe help Orlando break through. I don't know if it's going to be more of these kind of homegrown companies taking that next step, or if Orlando lands some big headquarters relocation that gets people to start talking about it and get some buzz here. I'm not sure, but I think that is really the big story of the pandemic has turned everything in the tech world, I think, upside down. And, it's no longer really the thing where Silicon Valley, or the Northeast is the place to be. There's so many new places to be, but can Orlando get on that, that list? Can Orlando be one of those places? So I don't want to take up the whole time because I know Jan's going to talk a lot about some cool things, but I just want to see any other questions or questions you have, either something I've talked about or just things you're curious about and seeing what we're watching. It was really hard for me to try to condense down what to focus on because we do so much, but just would love to hear y'all's thoughts on anything if you wanted to talk more.
We could also do questions at the end too. If you
Okay,
want to.
that works too. Yeah.
I actually have
Yeah, please.
Okay. How, it seems like a branding problem, honestly. So how, I don't even know if you know, what's the economic development in the change? What are they doing to alter this conversation? Or if anything,
Yeah.
if you don't know, that's okay too, but I'm super curious.
Yeah, I can tell you a few things. There's not everything that they've, that they really make super public or go into like detail about kind of behind the scenes. But I can tell you that I know that pretty early on in 2020, they did definitely obviously see this disruption and what people have called the great relocation of companies and people and money all just moving around the U.S. to kind of resettling. I know that they did I believe it was called Operation Laser Focused, which was like a new, again, initiative within them. So that was to, again, try to capitalize on this, bring in these companies. The OEP has done a lot, I know, in terms of especially, relocating some kind of divisional branches, that kind of thing here during the pandemic. They've helped a lot of companies that were already here grow and add, 100 jobs here, 60 jobs here, that kind of thing. But again, it doesn't seem like we've really been able to land any, a major tech relocation headquarters that's really like, oh, we're all in Orlando. That has escaped them. I know they've done, the OEP again has partnered with, some kind of marketing and PR help.
I'm sorry, I'm dense. What's OEP?
Oh, sorry. The OEP is the Orlando Economic Partnership. So that's Economic Partnership. OEP. Sorry.
I heard OAP.
Oh, no. No, so the partnership I know has went out and got a kind of a marketing and PR help. They're trying to, again, approach publications, media publications outside of Orlando and try to kind of promote that story and hook up and connect them with sources and people here in town to say, hey, here, you should kind of explore what's going on in Orlando's tech scene. It's not really something that y'all have covered before. And I've seen some articles, I think that you've gotten Forbes and maybe a couple others to kind of write some more about Orlando. So that's kind of a way to go through media outlets to get that. Again, those would probably be the big things. But again, like I said, I know some of the biggest relocation wins Orlando's had have been not exactly super explicitly technology related. They've gotten the big Disney relocation. And again, those are definitely corporate level jobs. A lot of that is probably tech focused. But again, that's a hard one to then say like, oh, our identity is transforming as an economy. And then your biggest, job wins is Disney, which again, I think it's a net win for the region for sure. But it's just, again, it feeds back into that whole messaging identity issue. So yeah.
You would think that, I remember, they're expanding OIA, the third terminal.
Yeah.
I know that's not tech, obviously, it's JetBlue, but you would think with that, and then we have Medical City, that would entice potentially more tech from that perspective. Even though I know we lost the JetBlue bid to have them relocate to us, I guess they stayed in New York.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're expanding, you know, you would hope that that would be the case, but you're saying it doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, and that's a good point. I will say that over and over, what I hear about is Orlando's probably one of their greatest assets is the airport. And again, it's not the sexiest thing, but it is consistently ranked as one of the best airports. You've got easy flights in and out to almost anywhere, direct flights. So that is a good point, and that obviously matters, especially when we talk about corporate reloads. Lake Nona also, I would say, has probably gotten the most buzz during this pandemic, and it kind of hit the right time because they were still kind of building up that area, and it's kind of hit sort of that peak point for them where they can actually show off kind of their infrastructure. And so I would say that, again, I'm hearing there's been some interest in Lake Nona. The proximity of the airport is probably a big part of that. But again, I just think yet it hasn't materialized into the big win you can really point to and celebrate. One thing that's interesting though is I know I talked with there's a partner at a VC firm based in San Francisco. So she's a venture capital investor in tech startups. Again, based out of San Francisco, and she grew up in Orlando, moved to California for college, has been there ever since, working in mostly kind of in the startup world and in the investment world. And then in 2021, she actually moved back to Orlando. She bought a house in Lake Nona. And so, she was saying, she's familiar with Orlando, hadn't been back here much except to visit family in years, but kind of this buzz around Florida during the pandemic, and so many people in California were moving out to Miami. She's like, I know Orlando. She's like, why don't I just go back there? And then Lake Nona instantly caught her attention, just because of all of the, kind of the innovative way they do stuff. You've got, air taxis, self-driving shuttles, all this. So I think that's definitely an area that Orlando can leverage more to kind of speak to some of these people outside the region. I mean, I think not enough people outside of Florida know what Lake Nona is, but when you see it and you kind of explain the concept, it's definitely seems very forward thinking.
Tavistock is very happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
To piggyback off of the OEC, they did a big push. I know some people here were kind of the meeting that they presented, but before the pandemic, the Orlando, you don't know the half of it. And I think it probably, because it was a great campaign and showing high tech, and so I'm assuming that they're I think the pandemic kind of lost some of the traction.
Yeah.
Things were going.
Yeah, and no, that's a great point because I mean, I remember, especially when I moved here in 2019, that campaign was in full swing. You still hear that a little bit, not as much. I would say I feel for the OEP because obviously just attracting tech companies is one of like a million jobs they have. So they kind of in 2020 they had to go to crisis mode of kind of okay, we had some of the biggest, exactly, and you got one of the highest unemployment rates in the U.S. right here, so you have to do all that. But then just as fast, kind of in the tech world, it went into growth mode, and everyone's trying to look for new places to expand. So, kind of doing that simultaneously. So, like I said, I think that there's definitely a lot of things going on there to push that. I would just say the big number I looked at, kind of in a recent article I did, was, I think that the percentage of Orlando workers and what industries they're working with. If you look at leisure and hospitality, 10 years ago, I think it was, I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think it was about 18.5%, and now it's about 20.5%. So it's actually ticked up a little bit. People working in what they call the scientific and technical field, that's like the specific government name for most tech occupations. That was 2.5%. Now it's about 3%. So yeah, it's gone up, and in pure numbers, we're adding tens of thousands of people, but just as it's barely just keeping pace with the growth of the entire economy. So trying to break through there, like I said, the big limitations seem to be attracting more of that work here, but then also having the talent for the companies already here that, again, talking about if you're Universal, you're more than willing to bring on more and more, create more of these jobs and kind of contribute to the economic diversification, but you just need the talent.
So
I think we're gonna.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much. I'm sorry, Jane. I ramble.
Let's, if you have any other questions, well, he works in the building.
Yeah, I'll leave my cards too.
And Jen, if you wanna, let's
Yeah,
hear
come on up.
some stories.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We now have.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, good morning, y'all. It's a tiny but mighty group, and I love that. And hi to who's ever on Zoom. So I'm going to give you my brief bio. I see people checking phones. It's all good. I so live in that world. So my name's Jan Edwards, and I'm the president and CEO and founder of Paving the Way Foundation. And what we do is who we are is a fierce disruption in the cycle of child trafficking here in the US and around the globe. I started this company in 2013, but I've been in the startup space. I left corporate America. I spent 25 years with Time Warner, Advanced Newhouse, Bright House, that whole crew. I was in marketing and advertising. That's why I'm like, it's a branding issue for Orlando. It's just a messaging issue. So that's where I spent most of my career, was marketing and advertising. And how I got into the anti-trafficking spaces, I was on a medical mission to Ethiopia, and I witnessed human trafficking there, and learned that it's a $150 billion industry, right? So that's how that part of my journey started, but I don't want to get you hooked there. Does everybody here work for a corporation, like a big company, or you guys your own? 1, 2, 3. Okay, about half and half. Okay, good. So inside a large corporation, at some point in time, your values may not match theirs. That's where I was in 2008, and I was just really ready to go. And I took the EIE course, the Excellence in Entrepreneurship course at UCF, because I knew I just needed to go. I was like, no, I have too much knowledge, too much experience to be treated, back to the treating part, right? To be treated how I'm being treated. I was the only female executive, and they weren't interacting with me in a really great way. So I left. And it was really that, because I was in corporate America my whole life. You don't know there's something else until you step out of the something else, right? And so at the UCF, it was like, oh my God, there's this whole other world. And I'll never forget my first day not in corporate America. I was at the Panera in Winter Park. And I remember just looking out and going, there's life out here, having no idea, right? It's like, because I was in my little cubicle in my little office doing my thing, right? So that's really where my journey started. And inside the cable industry, I was one of 9 people in the country that really fully understood interactive advertising, right? And so I left there and started my own marketing firm. And I actually landed UCF as the medical city as a client. And when they launched Pegasus, the new healthcare right there, right as you go into UCF, we actually helped launch that. And it was like, okay, this is kind of fun being out here in the world. And then somebody else invited me to another startup. So I've been doing startups really since 2009. And there's 3 things I want to say that I've noticed. I think I left my phone over here. Yes, I did, because I have some statistics. So there's a couple things that I've noticed. First of all, being an entrepreneur is hard. Okay, it's hard. It is not easy. I have interns every semester with me, and I'm like, well, so what do you want to do after college? And occasionally I'll get a handful of going, I think I want to start my own company. And I'm like, Pat, hang on. You know, it's like, well, why do you think that? And they have this great idea, and they don't really fully grasp what it takes to start a company. And that's the first thing I think I want to leave you with, is what I'm noticing is and I'm not going to say it's not there, it's just diminished or hidden, is the chutzpah, the drive to create something and see it all the way through. That's what initiative, like the lack of initiative. And I assert, because I'm assuming, do you do HR? Somebody over here. Yeah, you do HR. I think that's what's missing in our community and society as a whole, is the initiative piece. It takes something to start a company. Like, it is not easy. And in Orlando, there's 2 things I will say about Orlando that I love.
the people. I've had so many of my friends ask me to move to where they are. And I'm like, I've been in Orlando for 25 years. My network runs deep and wide. Literally, if I needed, if one of you said, hey, Jan, can you come do blah, blah, blah with me tomorrow afternoon? I look at my calendar and, oh yeah, we need a place to do it. Not like I would literally, it would be 2 phone calls, right? So that having that kind of network, this is the most supportive network I've ever experienced in my life, right? I grew up in Arizona, still a pretty friendly place, but the people here is what, in my opinion, makes this a hotbed ready to pop. I really do feel like it, because we actually do want to see each other win. That's been my experience. It's not so much a competition-y thing. Well, it might be for money, but it might be for money. But in the realm of, I want you to win. How can I help you? Right? Because we all know someone, and we all know someone that could potentially help that person. And so I think that's one of the things of, as a society, we may be missing initiative, but here in Orlando, the camaraderie and the what do you need and how can I help you and let me introduce you to XYZ, I think is a really key component that I don't know a lot of other cities have, quite frankly. That's the first thing or second thing. The other piece is, I was looking up information about female startups and techs and VC, and just 1.9% of venture investment goes to female entrepreneurs. So the other thing that I've noticed that's missing too is women startups. We have the unicorn, Marianne Killigan, who's done Palm. She's right behind Stacks, right? She's right there is taking off. She's a brilliant woman, happens to also be Latina. So that's like that other, step up, right, of notoriety. And I think what is missing is women having the same opportunities really as men. And how many of you have, because the other female startup too, the thing I saw is in 2017, there were 22% of female startups. And in 2021, there was 28. So not a whole lot of growth. Okay, so I over here have to ask myself, and I just discovered this, why? Why is that? What is it that's stopping women from taking that shot? Now, the other thing too that I've noticed is it's very young women or women on the other side of their kids, right? Being an entrepreneur and being a mommy and being a wife and all the things that go along with that, it's a lot of balls to juggle. And I think the traditional roles of, okay, I'm going to be the mom, I'm going to be the wife, I'm also going to be the senior executive. Oh yeah, and then I'm going to make sure the house is clean. Oh yeah, somewhere in there I'm going to have to cook. There's this heavy load on women. If I'm off, let me know. If you're right here with me, back me up. There's this pressure for us literally to bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan and make you never forget you're a man. Very old commercial, showing my age. Okay, so that's really where is like somewhere in there's gotta be a balance to support female entrepreneurs. And there's a female entrepreneur that's out to create a way for women to have, it's like, okay, you're going to go out and be XYZ today. Great. I got your kids. I'll make sure they're picked up. I'll make sure they're fed. I'll make sure their homework's done. Right. So when you come in the door at 5 o'clock, whatever they, so there's that support system. I think that's really missing for a lot of women to have them fully succeed as female entrepreneurs. And in Orlando, I will say we have a little bit of a leg up in that we're not Southern, but there's a Southern vein that runs inside this city. There is, if you go just outside Orlando, some really good barbecue, right? So there's this Southern vein that runs through our city. And I think that's where the hospitality piece comes from. I think that's where the, partnering up comes from, where the collaboration comes from. We're one of the most collaborative cities that I know of in the anti-trafficking space. There's no other city in the country that operates like we do in the anti-trafficking space. Okay. To me, that's huge. For us, that's huge. And I think that the spirit of collaboration is really what has startups succeed. Right. So I won Startup Weekend in October. This is past October. Thanks. Yeah. And we won it for a mobile application idea. Because what we do is we do preventive education for kids, right? So we go out and I literally was in front of 1,600 people last week, so my brain's still a little reeling. But here's what I know about our kids. Our kids are being bombarded every single day with inappropriate pictures and messages. And I went to the startup weekend happy hour because I needed to get out and be social more. Like, I don't know if y'all experienced this over the past couple of years. It's like you're in social environments, like, I forgot what to do. So I actually put myself in more social environments to remember what to do, because I am an extrovert, so I don't have a problem with people, but there was something in the way. So I went, and then Rajiv had everybody pitch. And I'm like, I don't have an idea to pitch. And he gave us other things to pitch. And it hit me. I'm like, there's got to be something in the mobile app space I can do for kids. I don't know what it is, right? So I stood up and said something, and somebody pulled me aside. He goes, you're never going to get kids off social media, but I think there's a way to keep them safe. I'm like, ooh, okay. So we had a little conversation. I had some conversations with my former CEO of my foundation and a couple other tech people. And they're like, Jan, I think you're onto something, right? So went to startup weekend, pitched my idea, was one of the top 15. We got our team together. And what was key is we had 2 teenagers on that team. And we've engaged them the whole time. Our prototype's almost done. And we just got accepted to the UCF I-Corps program, which is a 5-week lean business model startup, right? So I share all of that to say it's the initiative. Like, I could have easily, because the other 2 teams, they haven't done anything. Whoever won 2 and who won 3, they really haven't done anything. They actually separated and didn't move things forward. So there's an initiative piece, and somewhere along the way, I think people got scared. And I think it's an opportunity for us, not only in the corporate environment, but in the startup environment, for us to come alongside some younger people and go, no, really, come on. I was watching the Crummer. Did anybody see the Rollins Crummer presentation of the startup? Okay, yeah, all 3 of us. And maybe somebody on Zoom, I don't know. But what I noticed is it was good. There were women judges, women VCs, right? Dana Latour and Kathy Chu, yay. However, I don't know how many women competed, and there were no females in the final 3. So it has me asking, what's missing for young women to even see being an entrepreneur, to even see starting something up as a possibility? So it's really kind of where I want to look at the time. That's really kind of where I want to leave you, is like, for us, you're in the tech industry, you're in the space, right? Who inside your environment can you see shows promise? I've got one intern that she's just so driven. And I just keep tossing things in front of her for her to take on, right? So who is that you can mentor, male or female? It'd be great if it was a female. And especially in men, I'm gonna put this onus on you. You can pave the way for us. Pardon the pun, is the name of my company. Okay. But you can pave the way for us to open some doors, to make introductions, because you're men. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That is the reality that we're still dealing with right now. And your partnership, your belief in us, Jan, tap a little left. Like, I see where you're going. Let's go a little left, and let me introduce you to this person instead of that person, right? That's the kind of thing that can make a difference for us in the startup space. Orlando's a great place to live. It really takes 5 things for a city to, right? You've got to have good education, or we're still working on that. Sorry, I know it's being recorded, but sorry, we are. There's some really, really great schools and really great principals, and then you've got to have great healthcare. We have that, right? You've got to have great transportation. We're working on that. We are. The fact that we've got the little light rail, it's a big deal, right? And pretty soon it's going to go to the airport, right? So we're growing. And lastly, you've got to have the workforce. And I think there's a marketing message missing from our college students to our corporate environment and vice versa. I'm not sure our kids know the value and the benefit of being here. There's no state tax. Come on. That alone should keep them, but I'm not sure they get that, right? So in my own personal, humble startup venture journey opinion, I think we're poised. I really do. I think we're poised to have that jump. I think we're poised to have that piece. We get the education piece handled. Look, we've got Lake Highland, we've got some great private schools. And if you're bringing in tech companies, these guys make a ton of money. It's not a problem for them. Their staff, on the other hand, right? It's their staff on the other hand. So I personally think, Orlando is one of the best places to do, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here in front of you. I'm really not. It's the reason why I haven't moved, right? I think Orlando is one of the best places to start something. You may move, but I think it's a really great place to start something. It's got an extraordinary community that really does pull for you. Being a leader is hard. Standing out is challenging. And I think this is a really supportive community where it makes it a little safer to do so. Okay, it's 8:58. I did pretty good in like 20 minutes, not even. Okay, great. I don't know if y'all have any questions or have any questions for Alex. Yeah.
I totally agree with you on the fact that, there's a disconnect between the culture from companies to attracting the younger talent in terms of college kids.
Yeah.
And I think the problem is, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you agree, is that there's this negative connotation when it comes to using social media. And that's how kids today, millennials, whatever generation you want to call them, communicate. That's how they grew up communicating.
Yep.
But there's still, I guess, because we knew coworkers who got fired for posting something.
Yes.
So there's still that fear of us
Yes.
leveraging these platforms, but these kids speak on these platforms. That's how they know how to speak. So
It's true.
there's this disconnect where
It's true.
we don't market to them because we're afraid to use the platforms that they're on.
I think you're spot on. And here's the other piece though. Okay. The reason why we're developing the app is, any teenager, and I've been in front of a bunch of them the past week to kind of confirm that, right? Because you have theory and then you test it. They get anywhere between 8 to 10 either inappropriate messages or pictures or requests. Hey, can I send you a picture of? It's just so weird. People are weird. No, I'm telling you. And after a while, people's brains are like, okay, at some point in time, they're going to say yes, right? They just are because they keep getting bombarded. So there's being, and what we coach them is once you send that picture, there ain't no getting that back. And someone can use that picture against you at some point in time in your career, right? So there's a level of responsibility as adults and parents that we've got to teach our kids. And the tech companies, by the way, there's actually a piece of legislation called the Earn It Act that will hold big tech accountable for this. Because right now they're using CDA 230 as a loophole to anyway, other things to say about that. But the Earn It Act really can make the kind of difference we want it to make in the social media environment. But no one has told them, no one has had that kind of conversation with them to go, you might not want to post that picture. Because there were two, I don't know if y'all remember, a couple of years ago, there was an NFL player and a baseball player that had done something stupid on their social media 10 years ago, and they both lost their multi-million-dollar contracts, right? Part of that's the environment, good or bad, right or wrong, it's just what's so. Part of that's the environment. The other part is the expectation, to your point. Companies have this expectation that I'm going to hire some perfect person. Well, none of us is perfect, really. We do our best. But none of us is perfect. I'm really happy there were no cell phones when I was in college. Okay, really happy about that. So yes, and I think there's a way for companies, and I'm not going to say don't go hire some college kid to solve that problem. That's not the answer. What is the answer, I believe, is to have dialogue with them. That's the first thing. The second thing is I think we're missing an opportunity in middle schools. It's kind of the same STEM conversation. Girls do good in math and then something happens and they decide they're not good at math and then they stop. Or science, right, whatever. Is in the middle schools, I think there's a really great opportunity for children to fully understand there's something more than being a social media star, right? It doesn't pay the bills. It's not going to feed your family. You can't buy the hot shoes because it's not going to pay you. Like, again, it's that unicorn thing. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to start going into middle schools and having conversations with them about what's possible. Here's the future that's coming. Literally anyone can learn to code. There's code schools. There's all kinds of ways to entice, not only young girls, but children that are in economically challenged environments. I was just on an interview yesterday with a detective out of Texas, and I said, in your opinion, what are your top 3 reasons why people are trafficked? Number 1 was poverty and lack of opportunity. this is opportunity, right? So what are we doing in the community to go educate that group of human beings to be like, hey, there's something more possible for you. I know home may be tough, but what a great outlet for a child to be able to learn how to code, to be able to work on a mobile app, to be able to work on people going to space, you know? So I think there's a huge opportunity for businesses. I do. And they're going to have to do the thinking, and they're going to have to engage the population that they're talking to, because that's the thing about lean business model canvas, right? You got to go talk to your audience. You got to go talk to the people. And I think that's something companies can do, and do it relatively simply. And, you pick up the phone, call UCF, and, go, hey, can I come talk to your class? The professors would love that, because it engages the students too. And same thing with schools. Schools are looking for other alternatives to engage their kids. This is a great opportunity. Did they answer your question? Okay, good.
Just a note, and feel free if someone can quote. When I taught at UCF, and this was between 5 and 10 years ago, I always would say, even then, everything you say or post or can and will be used against you in a court of public opinion.
Yep.
And
It's true.
It has not changed in a decade or so. And I think that is, I like where you're going, because I don't think everyone knows that.
No.
Especially younger. And
They have no clue.
That younger could be 30.
Oh, absolutely. Well, 35. Your brain's not fully developed until 28 to 32.
Yeah,
so
that's what I'm saying. So this range is still has some learning to do. So
well, and the other thing too that most teenagers don't know, under the age of 18 in the state of Florida, if you take an inappropriate picture, that's the creation of child pornography. If you send that picture, that's the distribution of child pornography. And then if you keep it on your phone, that's possession of, all of which is a level one, class one misdemeanor, all the way up to a class 3 felony. Okay, so a 16-year-old can actually be charged with a felony for doing that. Kids don't know. They get really squirmy when we talk about that.
So I do work for a judicial circuit.
Yes, you do.
Monitor initial appearances. Literally had a juvenile yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Of the exact same. And then there's also the stalking, harassment, other side of
Oh,
it.
yeah. Doxing and that kind of fun stuff. So our kids don't know, and the past 2 years have created havoc in their world, right? And there's predators that are taking advantage of that. And so, there's the dopamine hit, there's the impact of social media. And I think there's a really powerful way if you go out and talk to them, talk to high schoolers so they can choose where they're going to go to college, and talk to college students and be able to have the dialogue. What are you looking for in a company? And not, I want to play ping pong and drink beer. I was talking to, that's the perception. No, seriously, one of my friends who's going to develop our mobile app, he was at some tech event and somebody said, who's hiring? And 3 people raised their hand. And he's like, I'm hiring right now. If you know this, this, and this, I will literally, not I'll hire you on the spot, but there's a space for you. And all these kids, they wanted the fun place to work. They didn't want to work, right? Like in their mind, all those movies of what it was like at Google at the startup, Uber, the film about Uber's coming out, like all that startup space is super exciting. It is. It's also a lot of hard work. And it's the other side of the coin that's being missed in telling that story. And that's part of the media piece. So I think there's an opportunity. I really do. I think there's an opportunity to go in and talk to high schools and college kids about what it is they want. How can we engage with you on social media? And what are you looking for in a work environment really to earn money? Like really, you are expected to produce a result. Sorry, not sorry. You don't want to live in China. You really don't. You really don't. I have friends that are there. You just don't want to be there. And that's, our country was founded on, you got a great idea, let's go do that. Great, you got a great idea, let's go do that. Great, you've got a great idea, let's go do that. That's what's it's literally in our country's DNA. So, how do we tap into that and take advantage of that? It's going to take some thinking. We've got to stop reacting. It's going to just take some thinking, for sure. Okay, it's 9:07.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm here if you have any questions.
Just a couple quick notes. One, we are doing parking vouchers.
Yay!